Like, that's such a non-typical male lead type of persona. You're just like, did he get the wrong script? Like, what happened? Hi, this is Juniper.
Hello, this is Elle.
Welcome again to our pod. Today, we're going to do a wrap-up discussion of a show we had kind of done an early impression of about like a month ago now. I don't know. I've lost all track of time, but it's A Moment But Forever. Chinese drama, Chinese Xianxia drama, which at the time when we talked about it, right, the joke on the internet, it was middle-aged Xianxia, which kind of is because the stars were pretty old when it was filmed and obviously are older now, right? In their mid to late 30s was the male lead and the female lead. I think she was 39 at the time when it was filmed. Now she's 41 or something like that. So it stars Tang Yan. I cannot get her Chinese, but Tiffany Tang, right, as the main actress, and then Liu Xueyi as the male lead. And the Chinese name for the show is Nian Wushang. And was it 40 episodes? How many episodes was it? I don't even
36.
remember.
36.
36 episodes. And honestly, you'll have to refresh my memory because I finished this quite a while ago when it was on its original run on iQIYI. And you just finished it, and by cutting some corners. So we'll talk about we're making up today in our discussion for some of your outstanding questions, which if you in the audience member have questions, this is maybe a good way to kind of learn vicariously through Elle.
Maybe.
So I think when we first watched it, our early impressions were kind of not so sure about the show because aesthetically, I would say that the show in the first 6 to 7 episodes, you're kind of like, what to make of this, right? Because the visuals, the sets were so generic or so-so looking, right? For lack of a better word. It wasn't flattering.
No, I think we said, like, I don't know if it's the lighting. It just looked very synthetic, considering it's supposed to be this half immortal realm, right? It's people who have very long lives. I don't like. I don't think they're human, but they're not. I think that the Fox clan, right? So they're considered like demigods, and so the visuals in the beginning, we were like, what's going on? Like, I also read on social media people couldn't stand the hair. I think you made fun of the hair too.
Yes.
Right?
Gary Oldman Dracula hair for the Fox clan.
Yeah, and then I didn't like her, exposed shoulders on her dress.
I didn't either.
Yeah, and then they had the very distinct makeup where, like, the men, I think, had like blue eyebrow tips, and the women have red eyeshadows or something. It was really, it's just kind of strange aesthetics to it. So
yeah,
it was a little distracting. But then once they leave that mountain, I feel like things got better. By a long
7 and
shot.
8, right? It got so much better, like even visually. But first of all, story really doesn't take off until then. So, like all Chinese dramas, you got to be patient. Except rather than be patient for the first 4 episodes, which is more the typical kind of progression, this one you kind of have to get past like episode 6 and 7, right? And then go, where is this going? And then the visuals change once they go kind of on the road. Let's put it that way, and it gets much more interesting. So. I would say that I really enjoyed it by the end. It's still not like it did not displace, let's say, Moonlight Mystique as my favorite Xianxia of all time, but it's pretty good. With all of its faults. I forget if we talked about synopsis wise what the show is about, so maybe I'll just give a real brief introduction. Keep me honest here, but basically the story is of Ji Tanying. Well, that's her earthly name, right? She's a goddess. The goddess of what? Crafting? Carpentry? She's really good at building stuff.
Yeah, they call it craftsmanship.
Right. And she basically goes to Earth, right? She lives in heaven, comes to Earth to retrieve a powerful god hand sort of weapon she had created long ago. And right now that weapon is attached to the Grand Priest of the Fox clan, who you mentioned, right? They're not gods, but they're not necessarily normal humans. So they're like a tier above the humans, and they kind of are overlords over the humans. Like the humans kind of are more subservient to them because they live longer and more powerful. And the priest's name is Yuan Zhong. And he's supposed to have like a reputation for being like, I think, evil and ruthless and everything. So she was kind of nonchalant about going down and just retrieving the hand from him, right? Even though it's attached to him. But then she finds out actually he's not a bad guy. And she decides to basically stay with him until he naturally dies. So she's not going to take his life by, taking the hand and then remove the hand. But she does this without telling him who she is, right? So she kind of insinuates herself into his life as his pretend mortal human servant girl. Yeah. And that's basically the gist of the story. I mean, he's very suspicious of her because of, the way she comes across. Like, I gotta follow you every day, and I'll be with you always.
Well, she took a very powerful oath before she was allowed to kind of go down. So I think there were 3 things that was in the oath. One, she couldn't tell him her real identity. Yeah. The second one was, I don't remember the second one. The third one was that she was not allowed to fall in love with him. So I can't remember the second one. I'll come back to me later. But
very important though, plot point.
Yes. So between the 3 sort of oaths that she took before the other gods were, in agreement for her to go on this mission, I think that will play a big role when, obviously feelings are gonna grow between them, and then he wants to know the truth, or he wants to know how she feels, and she isn't, allowed to say it because she will die. I guess that was the deal. Like, she herself will die if she reveals the truth behind the oaths. So anyways, I just wanted to put that in there.
Oh, very important call out. So actually, we had this whole outline because we're trying to be conscious about the time we spend talking about any one subject when we do these discussions. But I just realized, rather than dive right into kind of the characters, right? I mean, this is a very much about a show. If you like the characters and the actors, you'll enjoy the show. If you don't, then maybe not for you. But that's kind of true of any story, right? But I think in this one the characters matter most. But before we even go into the characters, I just want to spend like a minute on the story, because I feel like I've already touched upon it when we were talking about like first impressions versus ultimate impression, which is, I think, what made this show, it worked for me, and I think it worked for you, even though you weren't able to watch every episode, right, in the way you wanted to. Is that it is very much about the main CP. Like, they barely give any screen time to other CPs, which is fine. And it's not necessarily a love story, but it's very much their interactions, right? That tells you kind of the progression of their relationship and how they are as people. And if you like that kind of like back and forth, like will they, won't they, or how do they feel about each other, jealousies and, like whatever, it's very fun to watch, like that kind of soap opera-ish thing without the overly melodramatic emphasis you see in some lesser dramas. I think that the fact that they go on the road makes it much more interesting. And I think that's also, I think when we did Moonlight Mystique, I said the same thing, which is like, it was fun because they were always together. They loved each other. There was no misunderstandings. And it was also fun quest, right? Like an adventure story.
Yeah.
And they kept helping each other. I'm not saying that there are no misunderstandings in A Moment But Forever. There were, but they lied to each other, right? One by omission and one because they just lie because they're manipulative and insecure. But overall, I feel like the fact there's a consistent focus and consistency in their dynamic between the 2 main characters and who they are and how they are towards each other really helps if you like them. And the way that the story plays out after episode, I think 6 or 7, really worked for me. So that's all I wanted to say about the story.
Yeah, I think this is one of the rare ones where I think both the characters are good and the story is strong. I mean, there are obviously plot holes and logic things you have to kind of ignore with the story. But I think
places where they have to force it, right? You're like, oh, they have to force that to happen. But go ahead.
But the culmination of it, I love the CP. Like, this the CP is just so memorable to me, and the sort of the trials and tribulations they have are so honest too. Like it's not done for drama, although they're very dramatic when they happen, but like the conversations they have are also very deep. Like
mature.
Very mature, very like it's not. I mean, I actually counter that with the second CP who I had zero interest in, to be honest.
Really?
Like,
I like them.
I did not like them at all.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, we can talk about that. But like even till the end, I felt like they were not meant to be, and it's fine that they were not meant to be. You know, like they were different people. So.
Well, we
Anyways.
could. I do want to spend like some not a lot, but some time at the end. But let's talk about the main CP. You like them. We both agree they're mature, but not in like a oh my god, so mature and hot and heavy. Like not hot, but heavy that it's burdensome mature, right? Like just adults.
Yeah.
I think you and I had talked about this offline when I first started watching. Maybe because of the weird aesthetics, it looks older almost, right? With older people in it. It reminded me of Love and Destiny.
Mm-hmm.
And
which is one of my favorites.
Right, yeah. I know. And the dynamic in that was also they're not the same, but there's like a playfulness between two really adult people, older people, but they're also like they're playful, flirty, but they're also mature when it matters, right? Like and I think that's that type I can't put my finger on how to describe it, but I would say that they're similar in that kind of flavor. The romance.
I think and they're from different source materials, and we forgot to mention this is from a novel. As Love and Destiny, I think was an original script, but the parallels there are that the CPs are independently strong people. So in some ways, they're all gods. I mean, though she used characters, not technically a god, but powerful enough to sort of be at the same level. So like you have these dynamics where they're not just powerful people, but they're mature, powerful people. And then when they're put in a situation where they suddenly have to deal with emotions, I think that's where there's similarities there. Where before before they meet the one or the significant other, right? They're just more mission oriented. They have things that they have to accomplish because of their ranks in their society, which is the god realm. And then once they meet that particular person, it's like they become vulnerable, and what you're watching is how do they balance the vulnerability and almost a weakness in their situation versus mission, right? I mean, I think the difference is that in this one it's very personal for Yeonjong. Is that how you say his name? How do you say his name? Yeonjong. Okay. Like he yeah.
Sorry.
I don't know. Like he like oh yeah, you have to explain that.
Well, later.
Yeah, everything about what he has to go through in this story is very personal, right? He has a lot of resentment built up. He's been
very
tortured.
abused.
He's been abused, tortured. He's PTSD. He's compartmentalized a lot of that abuse and trauma. And multiple times she goes into his sea of consciousness to almost like pull him back from the brink to like remind him, hey, you are a good person. Even though you've done awful things, it was under the guise of protecting your clan and you were also manipulated. And so I think in this story, you have to actually really like his character to enjoy it because it's really a redemption story for him. He's an anti-hero. And in the beginning, I think what's hard to pick up on is that he's very mellow in the beginning. So you don't see it coming that he actually, they talk about the hand being very powerful and divine, but you don't actually witness the harm that it caused. And then later on, he gradually, because he turns good, he's going to use it for good, but you never see him use it in the evil ways that he had been used before. So I think that's what is enjoyable when you watch her come in to sort of guide him out of that darkness. And yeah, like it's really not, it's very engaging for me. And then obviously when he sort of becomes like a little jealous puppy, when he realizes he likes her and he can't figure out how to make her like him in the way that he wants her to like openly say I love you or all of those things, right? Because
he's a very needy man. Let's just put it that way.
Yes. And I think the actor did a really good job balancing that. Like, he can play ruthless, and then he can play cute. Not cute like in a bad, cheesy way. Like, cute as in, like, genuinely conflicted about how to deal with jealousy or hurt emotions.
I love your analysis, right? That these people were very strong, fully formed people in a certain context of their lives until they meet and fall in love. Because I don't actually think that they became vulnerable so much as like they're so naive and uninitiated, innocent when it comes to romantic love. Then they're like 2-year-olds navigating this realm of the complexity, right? And they don't know how to deal with it. So then they act like children. They literally do act like children in the show. And you're okay with that, which, I don't know if it's the way they acted, which is like they did a good job acting, or the script was written, or it just worked, right? Because it could really fall flat. Two adult people, especially older actors, acting like, kindergarten kids having a petty like love spat, right? Or jealousies, petty jealousies, but somehow it worked and you actually enjoy it. I think that you also saw that in like Love and Destiny, and I think it's because I read or heard somewhere that the director and one of the scriptwriters for this show is the same as from Love and Destiny. So maybe that's a reason for some of the similarities. We'll never know, right? Like how much of the creative hand is from one or the other source. But anyways, moving on. So I will say then, right, I think you said a lot about the main CP. I actually don't feel that strongly about their CP-ness. Like, I don't naturally go, oh, Liu Xueyi and Tiffany Tang, like they're such strong chemical reaction on screen. But there's nothing that says they can't be a CP. So that at least worked for me, right? Like, sometimes they're like, yeah, you not only don't get this chemistry, but you also get the anti-chemistry. You're just like, why are these two people being paired together? Yeah. I think you care more about the character setup than the actor's chemistry in this show, right? It's not about the actor's chemistry. And the character setup is hilarious if you think about it. And there's so many like comments about it, is that it's like they did a role reversal between the typical male lead and the typical, like the male lead is basically like a female lead. He's emotional, vulnerable, insecure, needy, right?
Little petty.
Petty. He wants everything to be like expressed like very in your face, like I want confirmation and validation constantly. Whereas she's like, oh, like, I mean, in some ways she's like his mommy, right? And he kind of is looking for a mommy figure because he has not had that. Everyone has not given him love. So in some ways it's very twisted. But it's kind of hilarious to watch how like he's just like jealous of everyone in her life who's a male, needs her to like outright say every time. Like, I mean, he spent like I think you said you missed the section where they were hiding with the friend of his.
Yeah.
And that whole section, he pretended to be blind. And then
I think I read that, yeah.
Yeah, and then he re-injured himself just so that she would like stay with him. He'll do anything basically to get her to stay with him. Which is hilarious to watch and kind of pitiful. You're just like, really? Like, it's so hancha, very green tea. It's like manipulative, right?
Yeah.
But this man is shameless. He was just like, oh, I gotta do this so that she can't leave me. Oh, I gotta do that. And then when she still was gonna leave, he was just like, well, first he cried and got mad, and then he's like, by the way, how many times does Liu Xueyi have to cry? Then he was like, basically like, okay, fine, you can leave, but first we have to get married. Basically, I want to make it official before I let you go. Like, that's such a non-typical male lead type of persona. You're just like, did he get the wrong script? Like, what happened?
But you want that kind of guy anyways, right? Like, he's so devoted to her in that way. Like, you're not turned off by it. And yes, her character is she's a very kind and compassionate character.
Too saintly.
Yeah, I told you when we first spoke about it. that she reminded a little me of Gunyam, like Guanyin,
Yes.
like that
Yes.
that merciful goddess. And
Buddha,
I feel like I feel like she's sort of, because she's okay, so I read the novel, the English translation of it, and she wasn't really like that in the novel. So I feel like here, I mean, they actually, I mean, and we'll talk about the differences, but like here they really sort of focus on that trait of hers to sort of almost contrast with him, and also to guide him from his darkness. So it's kind of, I think in the beginning, you know, she's kind just for being kind, because that's who she is. And then I think it's just hard for him to be like, is she nice to everybody? Like, or is it because I'm special, right? Like, is she kind to me because I'm special and I mean something to her? So yeah, I think when you watch that, and it's funny because she has no idea, like, half the time, like, what he's thinking or planning or scheming, and she's just like, all right, like, she's almost she's definitely the type to try to take people at their, you know, like people who
face
wear the hearts
value.
on their sleeves. Yeah,
Right.
face
She's
value. Yeah,
very
like,
trusting and doesn't think people always have she thinks the best of people.
yes,
She's trusting and she's willing to forgive. And she even said that to him, right? Like, he's like, how do you deal with bad guys, right? Basically. And she's just like she's like a pure hero. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's like they're reversed, right? She's so good and kind and magnanimous, right? Even there was one scene I actually noted. I'll just touch upon it, where she defeated like four demons or something who were trying to stop her. And then they were like, well, kill us, right? You defeated us. She's like, this is so stupid. Like, why would people like you are stupid if you think that you just want the kind of the fame and notoriety by dying? It's a meaningless, I think, type of death, right? Like, that's a selfish, you know, you should like think upon that. And I was like, wow, it's so rare for anyone to say this, right? In actually an Asian drama. Like, it's so true, right? Like, there's a lot of like, spotlight usually shined on dying on, you know, like dying for honor, or you know, or
like, be a martyr, right?
Yeah, be a martyr. And she's like, this is stupid being a martyr. Thank you. I was looking for the word. So anyways, I won't belabor that. So anyways, do we want anything major on the main characters in CP? Oh, I will say this. So we'll talk about this later. I think you want to compare it to the novel which you read, and I actually watched the cartoon version. I would say that the main characters come across very differently in the cartoon, and you said in the novel for you. So I do wonder how much of it is they fit this drama version to the actors who are playing it, or just that's how the actors come across. Because I'm starting to see a pattern in the recent Liu Xueyi dramas I watched, where he seems to have this kind of persona he has in these costume dramas. I won't go further, but you know what I mean, right?
Yes, I know what you mean.
He's a
I see
very
it too.
emotional man. Let's just put it that way in these shows.
Yeah.
Second
yeah,
CP.
I don't.
Oh,
second
sorry,
CP. Oh yeah, no, second CP. Okay, so in the novel, the Tanghua has a very small role. I mean, he has a significant role, but it's small. He has no backstory. He does not have a love interest. And spoiler, he dies. So here they try to give him like a whole romance, which to me was like a non-romance, to be honest, because when the girl's been pining for him for like, I don't know, 40 years or whatever it was, and she's taking something to keep herself looking young, but she's a human, so she's not meant to live forever. And he had already forgotten her by the time they met again. And so then she, you know, and I guess she had been searching for some sword that he was looking for, and she found it and she wanted to give it to him. I don't know. I felt nothing between them, to be honest. I felt no chemistry. I think I told you offline, the male actor, I feel like he was not well cast for this role, because this character is supposed to be pretty high up in the Fox clan. You know, he's powerful, he's respected. I mean, the only person who's mad at him is the main character because they had a falling out. But otherwise, in the entirety of it, he should be sort of someone with gravitas and someone who has lived a long time. And I felt like when I watched it, it was just not like the actress I thought was fine. She was good for the role. Like, she, you know, she carried the character. I think for him, I don't know his actor. I know we call him Feng Long. The actor I felt like was just not. Yeah, he was just not. He didn't do it for me, and I was sad to see that because we liked him in Lost You Forever, and even though that was also a smaller role, but yeah, I could have just skipped all. I mean, I knew he was important because of all the geopolitics, but I could have skipped all their scenes together. It wouldn't have made a difference to me in the context of this drama.
But that's not to me. I agree with you, but that's not their fault. To me, I actually think they forced a second CP story where there wasn't, to your point, in the other versions of the story, and they made a character who wasn't supposed to be a romantic person. So in the casting choices, I actually don't think they did anything wrong, because if he's meant to be a romantic character who is fawned upon by this mortal girl, at least looks wise and bearing wise, he had that, right? He's like a very romantic looking, very beautiful youth who is actually young pretty much forever in her world, right? She doesn't need him to be a powerful general. In fact, she didn't know he was a powerful general. I think what your problem is that he doesn't come across as someone who's got that gravitas in the context of his background.
Or has lived the amount of years that he's lived too. I don't know. It was just
Don't you think Yuan Zhong is very naive too for someone who's lived? I mean, they're both babies. Remember, Ji Taiying said that. Like, why do you think I like you? You're young and not very bright. I'm like, okay, so that's kind of hilarious.
She's like 1,000 years old compared to
and he's like
100
or something, right?
Yeah, he's only 100. Yeah, like less than 100.
A few hundred something.
Yeah. No, like I said, every time he was on screen though, the actor, the second CP, I was just like he had no story other than sitting in tea rooms or, drinking tea and talking about the demon race, and I was just like I felt like they didn't know what to do with this character. You know who I liked? I liked the other guy, the Chen Lin, the
You mean the spirit?
No, the guy that liked Ji Tanyan, the
third male lead.
Is he considered
war
the
monster guy? Lead?
Yeah.
He's more lively, I think. He's got more agency, I think is what you're saying.
He was more fun to watch, even though he had no romance with anybody. I liked him. I rooted for him. I liked that one of the spirits, Lu Chen.
Lu Chen,
Yeah, I liked him.
When he had a story, but the show had a weird way of kind of touching upon something and then just passing by and then dropping it. And you're like, although they wrapped up Lu Chen's story, the very poignant story with when he lost his memory with the innkeeper, right? That was very nice.
Yeah, I liked her too. She was good,
right? Poignant story. Once that was done, it was like never mentioned again. Forget these characters existed. And the monster tribe guy, who's the third male lead, I liked him. I thought they were gonna maybe try to pair him up with the mortal girl, who was like the attendant on the ship that she befriends, that Ji Taiying befriends. But that didn't happen. Yeah, and not only that, they forgot about Ashu. Did you notice that? It was like she didn't exist.
They forgot about her several times. Like the fact they brought her back, I was like, oh, that's random. And then they forgot about her again. Yeah.
I don't mean the characters. I mean the story just ended without addressing what happened to her. Like she was really prominent, right, in the show, when she existed, but then she would just like disappear, and you're like, what happened? At the end, I was like, wow, they didn't wrap her story up. So I get what you're saying. There was barely a story with Tang Hua and Zhi Dai, the second CP. It was unnecessary, but I actually enjoyed them as a CP. Now again, I didn't think they were like much going on, but the idea of them appealed to me, and looks wise they both look really good. They almost need their like own short drama that's not part of this drama, because their story is so different from the main CP and the progression of the overall story itself that it almost like I think is a distraction, right?
Yeah.
But because they got forced inserted into this show, it was like lose-lose, because it disrupted. If you cared about the main storyline, you're like, oh, this is disruption. And it didn't give you enough. It didn't give their story enough time. Although I have to say the ending of their story was kind of like, really? Like, I almost felt bad for Tang Hua, because I was like, the only reason he loved her by the end, okay, right? But she like, I don't want him to see me old. I'm like, Come on, girl. He wouldn't mind. He really wouldn't.
He wouldn't. Yeah. So
but
that's a sad part.
Yeah, she minded. That's the problem.
Right.
She ultimately is still the person who can't love in the way that needed to be to happen for them to be successful. Right? She took 60 years to get him to notice her. Right? He didn't remember her. When he finally noticed her, she's like, "Oh, I'm ashamed to let him see me like this because I'm not like the epitome of my youth anymore." I'm like, "Really?" Well, then that's a very narcissistic love, right? Anyways, enough on the second CP. I thought they worked for me in my mind. I could make a whole story about them, but I don't think there was much in the show for them to kind of grasp on, and I felt bad about it. And the way they ended was kind of unnecessarily sad. But the whole show wanted to end everything unnecessarily sad, which you're like, really? Like, or just forget characters, right? Okay. So speaking of characters, there are quite, in my mind, a lot of interesting side characters or guest stars that pop up. So
I already mentioned the ones that I liked, like the other male actors who I thought performed well, had interesting stories, had, gave me reason to root for them, wanting to see them more on screen. And in terms of females, I mean, we didn't talk about the main villain yet, but we can talk about her later. I'm trying to think. Yeah, we can talk about her last. I think overall the supporting cast in this was very varied, right? Like they actually brought a lot of, to me, recognizable faces from different dramas, and like usually those people have bigger roles. And here they kind of just plop them in for like an episode or two, and then they go away. And I thought that was interesting casting choice because it kind of gave you the impression that something would happen with that person, and then it didn't. And so it's almost like, I don't know if it's considered a red herring, but it's more like maybe this character will come back and do something. But right now you see them for like, 20 minutes, and then you don't hear about them for like, the next 5 episodes. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
So 3 most notable characters that are not main cast, right, and 2 of them I consider guests. The third one I think is a support, right? So the 2 guest stars, right, are Baron Chen, right, Chen Shuhe, who we loved from Bromance a long time ago. But then when we saw him as the evil brother in Kill Me, Love Me, we're like, what the hell happened, right? They made him look so awful. Although I have to say, I did see his like death scene in that show, and it was like, oh, okay, at least he looks good in like one dying. The hair, man, the hair. So it was him and Liu Xueyi in that too, right? Playing brothers. This time he's the shifu, the teacher who taught the crafts to the female lead when she was still immortal, before she ascended to heaven and basically surpassed her own teacher. But I thought he looked great with the white hair and the red robe. And then he was hilarious, right? So he was the first guy that basically made our male lead super jealous. And he knew it, right? That was hilarious. And so I thought his guest appearance was to good effect and also rehabilitated my visual imagery of Baron Chen. The second male guest star of note is Fu Jiuyun, I think. The artist, the flirty artist.
I did not see that part. But
it's hilarious.
His character exists in the novel. Yeah.
Yes, he's hilarious because he's so flirty, and the actor who plays him is very popular, Zheng Yechen. And so I was surprised to see him as a guest star in here. And but it was to good effect, because if you think about it, right, if Yuanzhou has to be jealous of true rivals, they have to be rivals of heft. And I would say Baron Chen and Zheng Yechen fit that bill, right? They play male leads in other shows, or at least used to, right? So you're like, okay, I can see that as rivals for someone like Liu Xueyi. If you just brought in some random, caliphate or whatever you call that to be like a stand-in male threat, it doesn't work, right? If you haven't watched The Artist, you should watch that part. It's a pretty brief scene, but that was hilarious. Like, Yuanzhong was about to, like, you could literally see the steam coming out of his hair. Almost like he was so jealous. And then the third supporting character, who's I think a true supporting character, is Yuan Zhong's friend Mei Shan, the guy who was trying to ascend to heaven, who kept getting hit by. I really like him, and I remember I don't see this actor a lot, but I remember him from Love and Redemption, where he played a similar type of like persona, I would say. So maybe that's what this guy specializes in. But you know what? It's okay. You do it well. You keep doing it, man. Because I think he plays this kind of character really well. It was just a shame, again, he was did in by the story, right? Because the story basically decided that he had to show up again at the end and then sacrifice himself for God knows what.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, what a waste. He died. Everyone was like, oh, poor guy. He died on the first day he became a god.
Yeah.
Right? He finally made it to the heaven. The escalator was fixed. He went up to heaven. And then there's like death. Like,
It
what?
took so many years to become a god, yeah.
Well, he didn't know the escalator was broken, okay?
No. He's like, why is it not working?
He was so funny when he first met what's her name, Ji Tanying, right? She died because she took the lightning strike, and then he's like, "Are you sure she's gonna come back?" They're like, "Yeah, she's done it before." Like, "Are you sure?" And then when she finally came back, he's like, "Hey, you wanna be friends? Like the guy who will take lightning strikes?"
No, he had some of the best lines in the drama in terms of just being real. Like, he's a very real person. Like, he doesn't even with her master, right? With Baron Chen's character, he's like, when Baron Chen like appeared, he's like, "Why are you back here? Like, why'd you come back?" Like, there's no formality. Like, he's just very like blunt and I like his character is likable.
He's very direct, and you always think he's like gonna say something not like different from what he actually says, right? Like, "Oh, so you beat him?" "No, he beat me." "But it made me a better swordsman." It's like, what?
Yeah, I think in the bullet comments I was reading, I guess he played a little snake in Love and Redemption. I don't know if that's true.
Yes.
So people kept calling the little snake, and I guess Liu Xueyi played like a not so nice character.
He was the villain. He was the villain.
Yeah. So people liked watching them together. I think in this because it was like a mini reunion. If you were a fan of that other drama.
Well, all sorts of mini reunions, right? With Baron Chen.
Yeah. It's interesting.
So okay, let's talk about the villain or villains for me. But Hanyu is the Hanyu. I don't get her character other than she's hateful, and I mean in every sense of the word. And also her mouth reminds me of the Joker. Nothing against the actress, but it's a very big smiley mouth in like a Joker kind of way. Like it looks almost exaggerated, and I'm like, why did they put the makeup on her like that?
Oh, yeah. She might have naturally pouty lips.
Big mouth.
I don't know.
It's not pout, it's the width. Like the width is like. So it made her even look more deranged when she became deranged, is what I'm trying to say.
I don't think they made her deranged enough, to be honest. She was really deranged in the novel. Like, she was the villain in the novel.
But how did you hide this much derangement for so long is what I question. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I know, so I'm gonna compare this character to the novel because I feel like they didn't really do much with her in the drama. So in the drama, it was okay. You know what? I'm gonna take a big step back. So I don't feel like they touched upon it in the drama on this either. So there's another god, Tai He, is that his name?
Yeah. Tai He Shenjing, yeah.
So he's the main reason in the novel, at least, and also in the drama, that Ji Tanyin is going down to get the hand because he was injured, and the hand I think was gonna bring him back to life. Like
it's his hand.
Yeah.
She made it for
so
him.
So he's like in this I don't know cryogenic state right now, right? He's not dead, but he's not awake or alive. So in the novel, it's very clear that the Ji Tanying's character had a crush on him. She liked him, but it was never reciprocated, and then he ends up with Hanu. So Hanu becomes his girlfriend or whatever. And
really?
Yeah, in the novel. So when she goes down to retrieve the hand, it's really Hanu's like, you have to help him, you have to save him, you have to do all these things, and she's like, okay, I'm going down there, right? So, but deep down, she also contrasts her feelings when she starts to feel things for
Yuanzhong.
Yunzhong.
Sorry, Yuanzhong. I'm conflating his nickname and his real name now. Sorry.
Well, you say it better than I can. So like she starts to kind of contrast her feelings, how she felt for Tai He versus
Yeah, it's like an
Yuanzhong.
idol love, right? You idolize someone versus a real love.
Yes. So in the novel, they make that very, very clear. Like, but in the drama, I feel like they didn't really show that because, and also they made him really evil. They made him evil to say that he directed Hanu to do this. But in the novel, he was not evil. He was actually Hanu's hostage. So Hanu kind of tricked him to become her boyfriend. She took him away from Jitanyin. So when I watched the drama, I felt like because they changed that motivation, the characters to me did not seem as compelling, like in terms of evilness, right? Like the
he's not, the god did not make her evil in the show. He was no longer him. He was possessed by the primordial evil or something.
Yeah, so in the novel, she's possessed by the primordial evil.
Okay.
Like
she turned everyone.
She turned evil, and she took him, and he was her hostage, and she was sucking his spiritual energy, and she was gonna do the same with Jitanyin. So like she was just gonna like take over heaven because the idea was that in heaven it's vast. You're not like living with all the gods in one spot. So she was plotting. Yeah, she was plotting. These are the two closest to her. So she was going to take over them as the demon and then take over the heavens. So when you watch the drama, I feel like it was, we spent a lot with the CP. We enjoy the CP. We're like, oh, this is great. They're going to take down whatever villains. But when you show her, because she's sort of the reason and almost the catalyst, and then it's such a, they make her almost a more flat, like not 3-dimensional character by that point, because you don't even care about her. I honestly was like, even though I knew she was the villain because I read the novel, I finished the novel before I finished the drama. I was like, they didn't really put in any time. They spent more time on the second CP, who I had zero interest in, than building up the motivations or the plotting of the main villain, right? Because, and maybe in the context of the drama, who cares, right? Evil is evil.
She's the catalyst for the disaster that's befalls
Yeah, like
them,
you don't really need to care about her story. But they actually, the novel spend like almost too many chapters also on her backstory. And so I'm just saying, like, I felt like it would have been interesting if they kept it the same way, where Tai He was innocent in all of this and he wasn't like, the typical male demon who has like, I'm your master. But then I think they wanted to change it to give Liu Xueyi a chance to play an evil character. I don't know, because
oh my god, with the bad
because
lipstick.
then he had to be the demon, right, for a few episodes. So I don't know if that was just done for that purpose. Anyways.
Yeah, I think so, but it was, that part didn't really work for me, but I also did understand like Hanu's motivations, other than, there were a lot of viewers, at least in the Chinese platforms, who understood her. They're like, oh, we love her, she's so powerful, and I get it. I'm like, wow, they're really effed up people out there.
Yeah.
Right? Like resentful people. Like basically she's the embodiment of pent up resentment, right? Because her backstory is in the drama. Is it similar to the novel?
Yeah.
It's similar to the anime version I saw, which is basically she was
her
very
sister
wrong
betrayed her.
Right, and got her killed, right?
Yeah.
Was jealous of her and hated her because she was too good at what she did, which was sewing or something, right?
Embroidery.
She's a goddess, embroidery, whatever. She's a goddess of embroidery. I'm like, my god, there's a god of everything. Is there like a god of like the smartphone out there now? God of like, your third finger on your left hand. Like, I feel like that's how detailed the godhood is out there, right? Like, not detailed, but the specific, what's the word? Specificity? You know what I mean, right? Like, you need God for everything. Like, God for 5 o'clock in the morning versus 5 o'clock in the evening.
But they did.
Anyways,
they did. Yeah, Chinese gods. Yeah, they weren't that.
People will invent a God for everything, right? But I was like, so she basically is hateful of everyone because she can't vent her anger once she became a goddess. Because then it caused her like to go, because that's not what godhood allows. I'm like, this is really effed up. But it's more even effed up to see audiences who champion her.
So the novel made so things that I didn't see mentioned in the drama, but it could have been I missed a few episodes, is that in the novel they focus more on you to become a god is that you had to overcome an obsession. Actually, they touched upon that with Baron Chen's character, with the Sifu, right? He had an obsession he could not overcome, and therefore he could not reach godhood. So they say that's the first step. And then the second step is that you go through a tribulation, which you do not know you're going through. And it's something you have to go through. And so they said that with Hanu's character in the novel, her obsession was her, embroidery or whatever. Like she was very good at it. She was like born talented. But then her tribulation was her betrayal by her sister. And that's something she can never get over. And therefore, because she couldn't do that, then she started turning dark. Then the demons can get to her. Like she couldn't stay a goddess. Yeah, it's weird. It's, I mean, it's like, the logic.
Let's not question it. Let's not question it.
So I think, if you, and I don't know why viewers felt so attuned to her story unless you've been bullied a lot, because her story is sad in the essence, she's betrayed by her only living relative, right? And it is sad, but it's a choice. It's a choice to say you let this go, or you don't, or you just accept that even though we're blood related, we're just not meant to be friends in this life, even if you're sisters. So yeah, and then she had thousands of years to obsess over this. So
yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like it's weird because her anger also, then she starts targeting Ji Tanyin's character. And then, but then I guess to get to her, she got to the one that she loves, right? Who is, forgetting how to say his name, but,
Yuan Zhong.
Yeah, Yuan Zhong's character. Yeah. So so I guess if you watch it that way, then you can justify her actions, but she also wasn't that powerful. Like, I don't know. I feel like, considering how they hype up the power of the gods and the hand, I'm like, I don't see any. Like, they're still fighting against like humans with swords, Like, it didn't feel very. It didn't feel.
They needed to be powerful when they had to be. Like Yuan Zhong was supposedly all powerful, but then he was like being pelted by vegetables, by humans, and then it was nice rescue scene, right? Where, again, the female lead swoops in on the bird to save him, and the look, I did like that scene because he basically was damsel in distress, like literally he even looked like a damsel in distress. I was like, what is going on?
Yeah, because I feel like if you're that powerful, like you can. Both of them have the ability to wipe out a population. Like that's how powerful. She won't. But he will. Technically he could. Has that ability. He actually wanted to go scorch earth. Actually,
yes.
We didn't. We
but he's so glad he didn't, because then there would have been no coming back with her. He'd be like, "Oh man."
No, she would have been like, "All right, give me the hand." You're dead.
She'd be like, "You're no longer salvageable, and we're not gonna date." So he's really congratulating him. So it's like, thank God I did not go through in my plans to destroy the world.
Yeah.
Can we also just talk about, so Hanyu is a stupid villain in my mind, but very deranged. The actress did a good job making her deranged. I would say that, right, at the end. But it was so it came out of nowhere suddenly, right? That you're like, what? And then, I mean, you kind of knew she was sus from the very beginning, but it was just slowly sus. Or more deranged, and more, you're like, how did she hide it for so long? And more importantly, this is a PSA for younger people in this audience. If you watch this show, do not look up to her as a example of what you want to be as a human being or God. Not a good. No, do not hold on to your resentments. Her venting is not a healthy way of being. So that's all I'll say.
I actually wish they did a guest star, like a more famous person as her character, like someone who usually plays like a good protagonist, like a good character.
Like you would never guess, right? That this person was going to be evil.
Yeah, I feel like that would have made it more interesting and suspenseful almost. Like I feel like the twist, like, oh my God, that actress that everybody knows as always playing these nice parts, that would have been more interesting because she felt like an NPC almost. And one of the comments I read on the bullet comments, they called her, "Oh, that sewing machine." They called her the sewing machine.
Sewing machine. She is a sewing machine. But so maybe this is a good transition to nicknames. But before we go there, I do want to spend 2 seconds on another villain who I think was worse, which is the Fox Clan elders.
Oh yeah,
As a
yeah,
group,
yeah,
they were horrible people. What they did to Yuanzhong, but the leader of the pack, though, I also thought he got off too easy. I did like what happened to his sidekick.
I don't remember what happened.
Wait, in the final battle, the sidekick was like, he faced up against Ji Tanying, and she just like materialized
Oh
behind him
yeah,
and
she
kicked him off the
bopped
mountain.
him with the umbrella. He looked like he was about to go down having this
Yeah,
monologue, and she just
yeah,
poof,
bopped him
pushes
off.
him off.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
that
I
was
was like,
funny.
thank
Yeah.
God, this was a good. So that speaks to a lot of what I like about the show too. Thematically, there's a lot going on, right? There's hot and heavy morality stuff, philosophy stuff. There's romance, but there's also a lot of humor, and I would say that's what made me keep watching around episode 7 and 8. 8 was just, I told you, right? I cracked up so hard at episode 8
Mm-hmm.
where she kept dying, or he kept killing her, and
Yeah.
that's when I was like, oh, I gotta keep watching this show. So I think the humor intermixed with the more genuineness of the realness of their romance, even though
Mm-hmm.
to me they don't have the strongest chemistry, okay, but the
Yeah.
characters do work for me. And so I'll just say that I like some of the concepts they introduce. Again, I know I don't want to keep this too long, but like the ship was really cool that they
Oh
were
yeah, the
on.
steampunk ship. Yeah.
The Air Titanic. Um, some of the contraptions in that city she built were
Yes.
interesting, right? The
Mm-hmm.
self-driving cars and stuff. I'm like, oh, so it's a Tesla. A free Tesla, not a very expensive one. So I think those are all very notable things. Even though on first view you would think this was a very, very old fogey type of Xianxia.
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean the technology part of it, which I feel like they did a good job in the first half, like focus. You remember there were these people who really actually worship her and were like, humans should be making their stuff. We shouldn't rely on, gods or whatever. And the idea was that steampunk ship was actually powered by I don't know if it was powered by some magical stone. That's how it was floating in the sky. But like
right.
they touch on that and then they kind of abandoned that theme because those people stopped, like they were like terrorists on this ship, and
And
then
we're human terrorists rising up against their oppressors, or what they wanted to be. They were so there's a lot of like tribal pride type of thing going on, nationalism,
yeah,
right? Too, but
yes,
they
yes,
didn't go too deep in it. But they touched on. That's what I mean. The show was touching upon a lot of very different
mm-hmm,
things, maybe
yeah.
too much, but you get it.
You get it. I think, and especially if you're a Chinese citizen, I think those are themes that they think about, but they can't really talk about it too.
Mm-hmm.
um I know I'm interrupting you, but one thing I want to other mention in the book, the craftsmanship stuff. So they spend a lot of time talking about the things that she makes, and she continually makes things. They don't really show that in the drama. Like it's kind of like that's her role, that's who she was, but she's not like busy really making things. Like you see her make her like a cabinet or something. But in the book, she made automatons of herself, of Yunzhong. She made a
Mm-hmm.
guy that looked like him, and like a wooden mechanical man, and then she like makes when they had no money, she was making stuff to sell, so she was earning all this money to like they change that in the drama. In the drama they're always broke and they're like, whoa, how do we make money? She was like repairing things, but like in the book she's very resourceful and she's like she just does everything to provide him with a comfortable
Well,
life.
she did earn money when they needed to feed the kid actual money. They were like, "Oh my
Yes,
god, rearing a
yes.
kid is so expensive." I'm like, "Oh, this is hilarious." Um, but that reminds me, right? So you keep talking about the book. So I think you've already pointed out some of the similarities and differences with the book. I did watch the anime version, which is a very easy watch on iQIYI. It took me like half a day to watch it, right? And I have to say, it was interesting to see a cartoon version because the story basic premise is the same, but it had none of, like I said, the pathos, um self-pity that you get with the male character in the show. That's what I'm saying.
Hmm.
How much of it is a choice by the actors and the script and director, right? That's what they
Yeah.
wanted to do with the actual drama. The cartoon actually was very fun, like youthful romance adventure.
Hmm.
And it had a happy ending, but in typical Chinese fashion, even if friggin' anime, although I think there's meant to be a season 2 or they leave it open. They defeat Hanyu, she dies, but 600 years or 500 years later, they show that there's the automatons, like you said. So maybe it was a budgetary constraint that they didn't do it in the show, but in the cartoon they have automatons of kids, and then she comes back. Except they don't show you her full like person. They just show her feet landing and walking in and seeing him, and he's crying and he turns around. He's so happy to. I'm like, kinda. Even in the freaking anime, you can't give people a satisfying, happy ending with like full-on view. Like, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, so in this drama, it's sort of an open ending, right?
Right. So let's talk about the ending.
So in the book, it's a happy ending. In the book, her powers are actually in his body, and they kind of did that where Baron Chen's powers are in his body in the drama, but in the book, her power, a part of her is in his body, and so he takes the light. They call it the light, and then he like, it's like a beating heart, and he's walking around with this light in his palm, and then she like really likes these like immortal lotus flowers, so he takes that and he puts the light inside, and then he regenerates her, and she is a full person by the end. Like, he gets her back basically, but he had to wait for her to wake up. I don't understand why they changed that, because like you could have done, like, I feel like actually it's very similar to 苍兰诀, like Love Between Fairy and Devil.
Story Love.
Yeah, where you're like, oh, they'll come back. You have like the source of their spirit somewhere, and then you have to like put them in something to like incubate them, and then they come back. And I feel like I don't know why they chose not to do that here, because that was actually in the source material, you know. So
yes.
So that's a shame, because and I think I've read some places where when she dies, like, he doesn't even look at her. Like, if you pay attention, like, you know, she's dying in his arms, she's leaning on his shoulder. Like, the whole time he's just looking forward. He never like turns his head to look at her. He doesn't want to see
it happen.
Yeah, it's a mix for me, because if you understand the way he loves her, like, I would never want to stop looking at that person, especially if they're fading from me. And you know, he's died several times around her, and she's always screaming and crying when he dies. You're like, he couldn't even like look down at her, like. So I think that's why it was hard in terms of the open-endedness, because even when
it was unnecessary.
Yeah, it was like you don't feel it as much as you think you would.
But I think it makes the death scene much more poignant that way, because it hits more, because there's not an easy out at the end. So I think maybe that's why they did it, and it did make me sad to watch that scene. It was like, oh, you know, it's very sad. But she kept saying, "I will always be with you," which is, I feel like this is the hook, that underlying hook of she's not gonna die, she's gonna come back, right? What she meant is, my love will always be with you, right?
Yeah.
In some ways, but
yeah. Well, in the novel, he yells at her when he's like, "You liar," because he's been walking around for 600 years. He's like, "She lied. She's coming back, and she hasn't come back." So that was in the novel. I thought that was kind of funny.
That would be him. He's very petty, and you know, he remembers these little things. So I know we have to get to ratings, but before, I think I said somewhere in the beginning that I would explain why I couldn't say his name correctly. It's because the two characters have funny nicknames online in China, so Chinese social media. So his name's Yuan Zhong, but it sounds like Yuan Zhong, which means like kind of like a hapless victim. Yuan Zhong.
You called it a sad simp.
I did. That's how I see it, right? Like, victimized all the time, a sad sap. Her name is Tanying, but the actress is Xianxia. So she did an interview in Xianxia. They're like, oh, you know, how do you say this in Xianxia? Like, 鸡蛋影. But it sounds like egg sound in Xianxia.
Yeah.
So then they got it stuck, right? The two nicknames, like egg sound and sad sap. So anyways, I just want to go there, and then so real quickly, let's wrap up, because I think we can go on and on with about this show. Ratings. Based on what you saw.
Yeah. I give it an 8.9. I really I would go higher if the second CP hadn't actually, you know, been so I was like, is it a 9? It's not,
you.
not quite. I don't know. I was just like, oh, they're sucking the spirit out of me. Yeah, 8.9. And also, I didn't mention, I love the OST. Like the music in this is so good. Like,
Really?
I really like the music. Yeah, if you go back and re-listen, like it's actually there's some really really good songs.
All right, I'll have to check that out. So
Yeah.
we agree. We actually have the same rating. I give it an 8.9, and my reason is I liked it very much despite the beginning. In fact, I would say the reason it's not a 9 is the deduction for the beginning, kind of like, what is this? It's very jarring, the aesthetics, right? And then the ending. Again, not because I can't take a sad or open ending. In fact, it didn't affect me in some ways like some audiences are. I could take it. I just didn't feel like it was absolutely necessary in this context.
Yeah. And also I find the show to be very rewatchable because like you said, the comedy in this is so and the use of music too for the comedic scenes. I don't know if you noticed they have this, I don't know what instrument they use to sort of emphasize the comedy and and all the actors in this, they're all very good. Like I just there was nothing profoundly like jarring. Like everyone kind of fits into this universe really nicely. So
yes.
yeah.
I would say if you can patiently or not, maybe impatiently fast or skip forward the first 6 episodes, start watching around 7, get the gist of the setup where she becomes, infiltration into the clan. The rest of it is a rewarding journey.
Yep. Yeah.
All right.
So, and then we're already moving on to the next Liu Xueyi drama.
Yeah, what did I text you? I was like, oh my god, I can't get the man off my screens. It's like every other show, Liu Xueyi's in it now. I'm like, what is happening here? I'm not even a fan. They're making me a fan. Like they're force feeding it to me.
I don't know. I like watching him. He's very easy on the eyes. So
he's fun to watch, and he always plays the characters that like not everyone can carry off this type of needy, emotional man, but he plays wildly erratic pretty well. Is all I can say.
Yes.
So
yeah.
All
right. Well, until next time.
On to the next Liu Xueyi drama.
Yes.
All right. Talk to you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.